Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Hello and happy Thorsday to all who celebrate. Thor Nystrom from Matthew Berry's FantasyLife.com. He has not slept in 48 hours. He has just been posting every 90 seconds a new JJ McCarthy meme, GIF, highlight reel, or piece of propaganda. How are you, Thor?
I am healing this great state. We are healing together through JJ McCarthy highlight videos.
Right now, I'm at TCO, Thorsky. There is a chance that JJ McCarthy and I are in the same building. So don't get too excited.
Oh, I bet you are.
But
you're both grinders.
I can feel the vibes. I can feel the vibes of the Vikings starting quarterback for the next 10 years in the same vicinity as the sports dad.
You see
Smells like
QB1?
leadership.
Hey, Judd, you see QB1, you say hi to QB1 for Thor.
Well, yeah, I sure will. Are you kidding? He's going to say, like, is that guy stalking me or something? Should I be concerned about this? Be like, no, he's great. It's a Thorsday. Happy Thorsday, JJ.
Put an ankle monitor on Thor. So, okay, before we get into what we think is going to be the start of the JJ McCarthy era, and we'll throw it to Thor, we also have, there's a couple different platforms now that have odds on Sam Darnold's next spot. And we know where the Vikings are drafting now, so we can start to mock around that. A lot of things to get to here today. But let's talk about Underdog here, Dex. Division round weekend. It's a good weekend. We got the Natty coming up on Monday, too, college football.
You can even do a split the pot first touchdown scores right now for games in the divisional round at Underdog. So a new little factor, a new little wrinkle for you to get in on the action. Plus, random tokens that could pop up, some discount tokens that could pop up. Hell, maybe even a free pick 'em as well. Those current users have those notifications on for you. And then the new users, sign up. Promo code SCORE. No better time. This is the best weekend of football, in my opinion. So sign up at Underdog. Promo code SCORE for a 50% deposit match.
And I know where the Mackies are going to be watching football this weekend on the 65-inch Roku TV that we brilliantly purchased back before football season for sports viewing these last few months. Roku is America's #1 TV streaming platform for years and years. Now they have a new line of smart TVs made by Roku. You can visit the sports tab or box on your Roku home screen to browse live and upcoming games, see where they're streaming across various popular channels. Roku is your home for football viewing. Go to Roku.com or shop at a retailer near you to make sure that you have the best smart TV in the business, a 4K TV that automatically adjusts picture quality as well when you're watching Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson and not the Vikings this weekend, unfortunately. So, I'll start the conversation here, Thor, assuming that I know there's still some buzz. Like, there's one platform that has the Vikings as the most likely landing spot for Darnold still, and we can get into the Darnold thing, but we all agree here, I think, on this show that it's very likely the JJ McCarthy era started yesterday. What I love about this is, while all these other teams in the NFC are forced to pay $50, $60 million for the quarterback that they were building rosters around. I mean, the Cowboys had to give Dak $60 million. Well, I said had to, and air quotes, I should. They chose to give Dak Prescott $60 million. The 49ers are sitting here facing $55, $60 million for Brock Purdy. The Packers just had to give Jordan Love $55 million, right? So while all these other teams in the NFC are facing huge chunks of cap space for quarterbacks, the Vikings can zag. The Vikings can spend nothing on their quarterback. Maybe he blossoms as a great talent right away, but this is what we've been talking about for years and years and years. It's finally here in front of them, and I'm excited for the Vikings to walk into building a roster with cap space with a talented young quarterback, unlike these other NFC teams are their situations now.
That's right. Yeah, the moment has arrived, and now you're up to $75 million in open cap space. They were able to carry over $5 million. The Jason guy from Over the Cap was reporting the carryover cap room, but you're up to 75 and change cap room. You have the 24th pick in the first round there, and you have precious few roster holes at this point. You have the resources to plug every single one of your holes with a potentially Pro Bowl caliber starter right away, right? I mean, and or first round pick and or day 2 running back, right? But like the 2 interior defensive line holes, the 2 cornerback holes, right guard, those 5 being the primary ones, you have all the resources you need to bring in good players at all 5 of those positions.
So, Thor, let's go back to because I feel like there is this definitive opinion that Darnold's last 2 games cost him his job here. Like the Vikings were going to probably try and bring him back, and now this cost him his job. I think that's revisionist history.
Yep.
We've talked about this for a long time. I don't think the plan was, short of a Super Bowl title, which clearly is a curveball, okay? But I think if the Vikings had lost in the first round, and let's say Sam plays well, I don't have any evidence other than what people were saying and trying to report that the Vikings were like wavering, that they were like, oh, about McCarthy, we don't know. And it's interesting because I keep hearing people say, well, with JJ, we don't know. And my point is, he was the first quarterback taken by this franchise in its history in the top 10. He is, if the Vikings had meetings where they sat down and said, well, Darnold's playing really, really well prior to week 18, and we don't know about McCarthy, then everyone in that room should be fired. Like, you don't take a quarterback in the top 10 and then start to say, well, we're not sure. This is not a 7th round pick. So I think this whole thing about, well, the last 2 games clearly put the nail in the coffin of Darnold's time here is overblown. I think there's a very good case to be made that he was always going to be gone, short of something unbelievable. And this whole thing of, well, we might not know, that's the Spielman time. Like, this kid was taken for a
Spielman,
reason.
by the way, who has been stumping on his CBS platforms for a Sam Darnold 3-year extension over $100 million.
Yeah,
right?
which is why Rick is holding a microphone.
Well, he's also helping to craft the Jets front office and coaching staff right now as a consultant, right?
Yes.
How many times did I say every single week? Predetermined outcome. Say it with me. Predetermined outcome. There was never anything that was going to happen that was going to change next year. Every transaction that has been done for the last year and a half has led up to what they envision next year's roster being. Sam Darnold was never a part of it. But like we had talked about before, the better and better he played, the deeper hypothetically the Vikings got into the playoffs, the more he would have priced himself out of your range. These new storylines coming out from the media folks of, oh, it changed the last 2 games, but prior to that, it was something else. Who creates storylines? The storytellers, people in the media. Everyone and their brother was saying, except for people present in this room right now, was saying prior to the last 2 games, oh, they must re-sign Sam. So isn't it convenient that the same people out there all season for 16 weeks that was telling all you people at home, oh, they're going to re-sign Sam, they have to re-sign Sam. Isn't it convenient for those people after the last 2 games to say, oh, the equation changed after the last 2 games? After those people put on blinders since the summer, since the spring, to every quote that the Vikings staff and front office said about JJ McCarthy, all the signs that we got, the quotes indicative of JJ McCarthy will be the starter next year. I could show you 20 of those that were prior to the past 2 weeks, and you could not show me one back from any of those guys that insinuates that any of them were thinking or saying that Sam Darnold even could come back next year under any circumstance. There was never an insinuation of that. This was a predetermined outcome, and what we are going to see next is a predetermined outcome, not determined the last 2 weeks, determined a year and a half ago.
Is it fair to say, because I think if you're looking at the arc of the last 9 months, the bar was very low, the expectations were very low for Darnold, that even if he played a chunk of the season, it's going to end at some point. McCarthy's going to get the baton, but then the McCarthy injury happens, and the bar is still very low. Even internally, I don't know that they thought 14 wins. Maybe they had some belief that they could make a playoff charge, but don't you think that as the season was progressing and the information was changing, while a lot of people in the media were saying, you have to sign Darnold, you are foolish for not signing Darnold, that the internal conversation with the Vikings was less that and more, we might be able to get something for Sam Darnold now, right? We might be able to. We weren't thinking at all about franchising him when we signed him, but my God, this guy's throwing for 35 touchdowns. I wonder if we could actually spin this into draft capital. Do you think that is still a possibility here as we sit here after the way? Because the way he played in the last two games may not, like the Vikings may have had a predetermined outcome, but the way he played in the last two games may prevent them from getting value for him. What do you think?
That's yes, and that was very well said, Phil. And that is the way.
Thank you, Thor. I appreciate you.
That is the way that the equation briefly changed there in November and December, right? Because if the market becomes such, all of a sudden, if there is more than one team that is willing to give more than $40 million on the multi-year deal, right? The $40 million is important because that's what the franchise tag is at that position. You need multiple teams that are offering him the multi-year deal over $40 million a year. If that were to happen, that is how you create potentially your trade market for that tag and trade. After the last 2 days, I certainly wouldn't be able to project that, right? Like I think he's probably going to settle in mid to high 30s is where I would guess that. And that's, reading around, that's where the projections have sort of settled. That is going to be south of what you need to get trade compensation in a tag and trade, unfortunately. So yeah, I think we're looking at a third round comp pick in 2026.
And by the way, you wouldn't we have to sit here and kind of blindly project because we're not having back channel conversations that the Vikings and maybe agents and other teams are having over cocktails at the Senior Bowl. But the Vikings don't have to franchise him or make that decision for another 6 weeks. So you would never just blindly franchise him 1 year, $40 million, and then be like, okay, let's have some conversations. You would have all of that information ironed out and back channeled. Oh, we've got two teams. We're not going to get a first round pick, but we might get a fourth round pick here. We got to market. Okay, now we feel comfortable franchising him and hammering out a trade, right? You'll have all of that information before March 5th, I would presume.
You sure will. In a week from Monday, I will be getting on a plane and heading to Mobile, Alabama. And it's funny what you see in Mobile, Alabama. I was DMing the CEO, the czar of the Senior Bowl a week or two ago, Jim Nagy. And we were talking about prospects for a little bit. And I told him, I just got the credential thing had come in. And I told him, I said, I don't think I'm going to see anything as interesting this year on the field as a couple years ago when I saw Kwesi flirting with Brian Flores the entire time. That was just prior to them hiring him. It's like the NFL's meet and greet, right? And it was funny because Nagy responded to that. He goes, did he make it that obvious? I was like, yeah, he did. Kwesi was in love. It was you look across at the bar at a first date and you could tell they're in love with each other. That was Kwesi. But, you have the entire NFL there and you got a lot of downtime during these practices. Keep in mind, right? The media is on one side of the stadium. The NFL is on the other, right? Both in the stands and then up in the box. And then the NFL people are all around the sidelines. They're just mingling with each other. Right. I mean, we saw in the last Hard Knock, the offseason Hard Knocks with the Giants. I don't know if they'll ever do that again because Joe Shane looked like such a buffoon on the thing. But last year on the sidelines at the Senior Bowl, late January, that's when Joe Shane first engaged Panthers general manager Dan Morgan about Brian Burns in what would become a tag and trade for a second and a fifth round pick for him. Yeah, these talks are all going to be starting later this month, and we'll see where they go. But yeah, by the time that the Kwesi gets to where he has to make that decision 6 weeks or whatever, he is going to have a much greater sense of the chessboard as it lies leading up to that decision.
The hotel bars, man, that's the place. There are no restrictions for the media on the bars. And I believe that I don't know about Kwesi, but I believe that there will be a few people in the Vikings traveling party who enjoy a cocktail. So hang out there. You'll get all the dirt. There's nothing like 3 drinks to loosen up a coach.
And hopefully they get into the haberdasher this year. Remember a couple of years, I told you guys we were walking behind Kwesi and some of the other people in the front office there. They tried to get into the haberdasher and the doorman didn't know who Kwesi was and was sorry, we're full. And then Kwesi's like, oh, no problem, man. And they just kept walking.
The doorman's like, I saw that 2022 draft class.
Don't you know who I am? Hey, Thor, back to your point on McCarthy, too. I think the most telling thing was after he got hurt and had the surgery, when O'Connell said, we have found our quarterback,
Yeah.
A coach doesn't say that about a guy unless he is fully planning to pivot to him. The other thing too is if you think this through, okay, so O'Connell is going to be, as of right now, going into the last year of his contract in 2025. I'm assuming an extension gets done soon. I sure hope so. There's no compelling case not to get that done. But if you think about O'Connell's future, just think it through logically. Do you really think that Kevin O'Connell at the end of the day is going to tie his coaching career to Sam Darnold? A guy that he did a great job of propping up but had to prop up, and a guy who in the last 2 games, I don't care what anyone says, completely came unglued. So, like, you would have to think that O'Connell has done a hard pivot to tie his career to that guy. Like, I would, if McCarthy succeeds, awesome, but if he fails, at least you're going down with a kid that you believed in completely. So, like, there is no question logically that O'Connell is not going to freak out and say, oh my God, Darnold was good. I'm going to tie my future to Sam Darnold. He is going to say what everyone else should say, which is, it's incredible you got 16 games. Now I'm going to go to the quarterback who in the summer I called my quarterback of the future, which I have never heard a coach say and not deliver on, allowing that person to get an opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Sam is, and Sam had a great year, right? I mean, hats off to him. We'll always appreciate the 1 year that he spent in Minnesota. He certainly exceeded my expectations. I don't know any, whose expectations he didn't exceed, right? So hats off to him for that. But we got to call a spade here. He is Frankenstein. He is the Manchurian candidate for Kevin O'Connell. Right, he does what O'Connell says until he doesn't, and then things get really bad. But he is a creation of the play caller and the supporting cast around him. And again, he did a good job the first, whatever it was, 15 weeks mostly, right, with those car keys, did not careen the car off the cliff. The last 2 games, that car went off the cliff. We're looking for a guy who doesn't need he doesn't need the script before heading onto the stage, right? Like, of course he's going to get that, but he can speak for himself as well. JJ McCarthy can speak for himself.
So as we joked about off the top of the show here, if you're looking for some positivity, some optimism, you're feeling bad about the way the season ended, just go to Thor's Twitter /X account @ThorKU, where he's been posting just JJ McCarthy propaganda for the last 2 days. But because it's been a while, man. Like, we started talking with you about JJ McCarthy around this time last year, leading up to the draft. And you were the first person, at least on our radar, because we were like, yeah, the Vikings, maybe like late first, second, whatever. And you said, no. This dude, by the time the whole process plays out, this dude's going to be much closer to a top 5 pick than anything in the second round. So just as a reminder, he has been stashed away. JJ McCarthy. He doesn't do media. The Vikings have essentially just put him in the back room. You see him on camera during game days, but they have kept very purposefully a low profile. So there hasn't been a lot of talk about him since draft time, maybe training camp before the injury. What are the 2 or 3 best attributes that Vikings fans should be excited about when it comes to JJ McCarthy? Give us a refresher from where we were 6 or 9 months ago.
I'm gonna have to give you more than 3, but this is a 5-star kid who my favorite thing about his game, the funnest thing that Vikings fans are gonna appreciate about his game, it's the improvisational thing. It is the off platform, off script when the first second look is not there, the extending the play, of making people miss, and then outside of the pocket, keeping the mechanics with him, the eyes downfield, and then the ability to hit a guy all 3 sectors of the field, including on the opposite side of the field at any time. The thing that frustrated the Vikings fans so much the last 2 games was the discombobulation of Sam Darnold's brain going through the progressions, and we had talked right from the signing of Sam Darnold, that was his bugaboo, is going through the progressions and the extending of the plays, going off script, etc. That is JJ McCarthy's special sauce. And the scary thing about it is they didn't at Michigan allow him throughout every single game to go YOLO with that, right? This was a championship team. JJ McCarthy came in there as a 5-star recruit, this wild stallion of a prospect, bazooka arm, all-world athlete, goes and with the special improvisational skills, and he fit his wild stallion game into Jim Harbaugh's pro 12 personnel system. Very similar to the 12 personnel system that Kevin O'Connell runs with the Vikings. The improvisational thing when the defense does the nonsense that they were doing there at the end of, okay, we're gonna double Jefferson, he's gonna have the over the top thing, and we're gonna blitz you too, we're gonna hurry your process up, and we don't think you can get to the second and the third and the fourth progression. Try it with JJ McCarthy next year. He will light you up all game long. The defenses are going to need to come up with a new strategy. You can't do the same straightforward paint by numbers with your finger thing that could get Sam out of his game like we saw the last 2 games. You can't defend JJ McCarthy like that.
So, Thor, what is your opinion, too, about, and this has certainly been a topic of conversation after the last 2 games, your thoughts about the need to improve the interior of the offensive line, and where would you address first, and also the need to give McCarthy probably a better running game than the Vikings ultimately had at the end of the day in 2024?
Both are crucially important, and both, I mean, you take the quarterback thing away, those things need to be addressed this offseason, both of them. And luckily, again, you have the resources to do it. In my opinion, you got to go and you got to get a stud guard. You have to make the Steve Hutchinson splash. It has been too long. The guard play has been, and we'll just say interior offensive line, the play has been too bad. It needs to be fixed this offseason, and you have the resources to do it. Go out and make your Steve Hutchinson splash, sign a Trey Smith. So that's going to be a big thing. And then the running game as well. I mean, the Vikings, they had one of the NFL's better offenses between the 20s. They were terrible inside the 10, the opponent's 10. Right. And why was that? It's because Sam isn't great with the timing anticipatory touch passes in close, first of all. And then number 2, you had the lack of the running game. You had the Swiss cheese interior offensive line, not great around the goal line when you're up against those goal line fronts. And then Aaron Jones, there was times where he was good at the beginning of the season. What always happens with Aaron Jones, he gets dinged up, and down the stretch, he's not the same Aaron Jones, and he's not a power runner around the goal line anyway. Even if you were to bring Aaron Jones back on a 1-year, like, let's just say there's absolutely no market for Aaron Jones. I'd be surprised if that's the case, but let's say you get him back 1 year, $5 million. You still have to go out in the middle rounds and draft a grinder guy, a goal line type short yardage dude. To try to improve that, hopefully behind a much improved interior offensive line after that has already been addressed.
The thing, Trey Smith would be, I know you need secondary help and whatnot, but I'm with you, man. Like, this is the first time you've had, you could drop $20 million a year on, I think the projected contract PFF has right now is like a 4-year, $84 million deal.
Sign it right now.
Yeah, I agree, man. Yeah. I agree. And you'd still have plenty left over to allocate to other free agents too. My worry there, Thor, is you do have a couple franchises. So Trey Smith has rings, right? Like Trey Smith, it's no longer for him about chasing a championship necessarily. So for him, it's I don't know him personally, but like he's looking for a bag and generational money. Well, the Patriots have $112 million in cap space, and the Raiders are sitting with like $85 million. I worry that the Vikings would blink in a bidding war, but they shouldn't. Go fix that position, and it'll fix the pass pro up the middle. It might even fix your run blocking in some of these deep red zone situations. But they are going to have a bidding war on their hands, and he probably winds up, I guess we say 20, he probably winds up being the highest paid guard in the history of the NFL in March.
Yeah, probably. And hopefully the Vikings are the team that signs that contract, right?
Yeah.
And Phil, you make a great point. Of course, there is going to be a wild bidding war for Trey Smith if he doesn't get the franchise tag, right? Like the Chiefs, they're going to have to get, like, to keep him, you not only have to franchise him, you need to release Joe Thuney, and you have to start getting creative at other positions. The Chiefs don't have the luxury of having a JJ McCarthy on a rookie contract, right? They have to make really hard financial decisions, right? And so there's guys that get squeezed out in that scenario. I think that's why we're going to see Trey Smith as a free agent. Yeah, you're going to get all these teams who are in on him. But this is one interesting thing to watch during the free agency period. We've talked a lot about how Kwesi, this guy who has proven to be good in free agency these last couple of years with limited resources, now he's going to have this big war chest of cap room to spend. But the other interesting thing is in these, you're up against a team like the Bears or the Raiders or the Patriots. These other teams that have money, what do they all have in common? They ain't contenders, right? I mean, how many other teams that are contenders right now that have that open money and are like, you are the missing piece to our offense? It's a pretty compelling pitch.
No, it's a good. Let me one last thing on the run game here. Where are we at? And we'll do deeper dives on like running back prospects and whatnot, but where are we at in the NFL running back life cycle and the way we view? Because I feel like we, meaning football media and even teams, went so far in the direction of running backs are expendable, interchangeable, to the point, by the way, where Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, other guys, Tony Pollard, like all these established dudes were just on the market. And we're not going to retain him. We could just find a guy. And then you look at the divisional round this weekend, and it is wild, the running backs. You got Saquon, 2,000-yard rusher, Derrick Henry, James Cook, incredible running back. The Lions are going to have not only Jahmyr Gibbs, but David Montgomery. You can't just like wing it at that position anymore. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on where we're at with running backs in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, your point's well taken, and you've seen a bit of a pullback on that. The peak of it, I don't know if it was, 3-4 years ago or whatever, but that, and since then, you've seen the Gibbs pick and some of those other different things that you're mentioning. It's not going to go back all the way, but yeah, I think, the lack of value at the position, quote unquote, it probably, went too far. Where even it went past where the analytics guys would have had it, where they're like, no, that position's more valuable than that. And you see with the Vikings, the difference between when they had the good Aaron Jones on the field, healthy, against when they didn't have Aaron Jones on the field, against when they had the dinged up Aaron Jones, the offense totally different, right? Like, and that's with the offensive line as constituted. You think about like having a good starting running back, and you're going to have one of the NFL's best sets of tackles. Those guys are going to be healthy again. And then you have a good interior offensive line. You sign a guy like Trey Smith. You sign a guy like Ryan Kelly or Dahlman. I saw your clip yesterday, Phil. There's guys out there. Yeah, I mean, your offense is going to improve a whole lot. But most topically to the Vikings, I think it's going to even a bigger impact than is on the surface, because the Vikings left points on the board this year by their offense bogging down inside the 10-yard line. Mm-hmm. There's two paths to fix it. Well, the outside of what is already going to happen, it's the improved interior offensive line, and it's the running back. You're also going to have a quarterback next year who is very mobile, a guy who ran the sixth fastest 3-cone at the NFL Combine last year, irregardless of position, and who purportedly runs in the mid to high 4.4s. in JJ McCarthy. So you have a stud athlete there at the quarterback position who can run around as well. You're going to fix your offense inside the 10-yard line. It's going to manifest in a lot more points.
The running back conversation to me is very intriguing because I think there is mass confusion as to what the trend was. So I think that people heard running backs don't matter, which meant the running game didn't matter, which has never been true. When you get to the playoffs, the running game is always important. The whole conversation sort of stemmed, to go back 8 years or so, from Adrian Peterson's last contract, which is you do not give a running back the Justin Jefferson contract. Adrian Peterson, when he was cut, was, I believe, the highest paid player on the Vikings roster. That should not happen. But that does not mean that, like, offenses are morphing and changing constantly. And to think that position was useless, that was never the case. What was the conversation was Phil and I have talked about this going back to our old radio show. The goal with a running back is to get them and use them up like gasoline in a race car as quickly as possible. Like, you want to abuse them because the abuse of them leads to more results. But that's why you don't give them 5-year contracts. I I think people got confused and thought the running back position was like done. It was never done. But I'm sorry, go back and watch how Josh Jacobs was used, okay? Josh Jacobs within 3 years could go off the cliff. Why? Because the Packers are using him up as quickly as possible. So that's where I think that there was a perception that's incorrect. I am still personally not going to give a running back term. Now, Saquon, dude, knock yourself out. I will give you 2 years of a great contract, maybe 3. But I'm not at a point where I'm back to, okay, I'm going to give you that Adrian Peterson contract. Look at how it aged. And we all saw it coming. That was going off a cliff. That's where the conversation started.
That's all true and correct. And you think about running backs, and it's sort of like baseball closer. If your closer is your highest paid player, you're probably not a very good team. And it's like, we loved Joe Nathan with the Twins. Remember when the Twins were on their long postseason run and Joe Nathan was so great? Well, when the Twins started to suck, what value does Joe Nathan have anymore? Right. So, I mean, it's sort of the same thing with the running backs as well. And the whole point of it, to Judd's point, it's like, it doesn't mean that now all of a sudden you're going to play 11 guys on offense and no team is going to have a running back. That's not what that means. But it's about how much of those resources that you have, draft equity and salary cap space, do you put into the running back position? And the way that I would do it, I had it written out here at one point, but basically I would be on a rotating thing with the draft where like every 3-4 years, I would take a day 2 running back. The next year I would take a round 5 running back. The next year I'd take a round 6 running back. And we would have this cycle where it'd be like these 3-year couplets. If you have to cut a guy, you got to cut a guy. If someone plays well enough, your late second round pick one year for his 4 years, he's really good. Tremendous. Good luck. We'll take our 3rd round comp when you walk. We aren't giving any of our salary cap space to the running back position. We'll devote some of those draft picks. We're not a first unless it's a crazy, unless it's a rare sort of a situation and Ashton Genty falls down to where he shouldn't be. But otherwise, that's the way I would do the running back position. Doesn't mean it's not valuable. Right? Like you still need to cobble together a good running back room. But I think the point is that you can do that without breaking the bank or certainly having that guy as one of your highest paid players.
It's like those Fast and the Furious movies where you got to build a car first, but then once you have a pretty good car, running backs are like that tank of Nas, right? Is that what you call it?
Nas.
Nas, right? Yep. And it's like, but if you just have the tank of Nas and no car, it's useless. So you got to build if you don't have a left tackle and like a quarterback and a defense first. But the Vikings are kind of at that point where go get a right guard and go get a tank of Nas. And that's what the Lions have, right? Lions have, all right, our house is our car is built, and now we have multiple starting running backs that are top 10 in the NFL. Thor, we have to get to. We'll just start scratching the surface on the latest round of mock drafts here now that we know where the Vikings are. But first, boys, let's talk about standard heating. Standard heating can help you this time of year.
Yeah, speaking of keeping warm, your friends at Standard Heating can help keep those furnace warms as well. Make sure those furnaces are working properly. It's a generation family business. It's in the 4th generation right now. They also can teach you. They have certified trainers to help you get into the field, and they have a great Smart Club maintenance plan to make life easier too. To get discounts on repairs, you get scheduling reminders. Great stuff from our friends at Standard Heating. Go to standardheating.com to book an appointment to make sure that furnace or make sure your air conditioning, make sure all that HVAC is working properly, and tell them Purple Daily sent you. Standardheating.com.
Also, Park Dental. Park Dental is my new dentist. Very excited. I was in flux. I was like a year and a half dentistless. I'd moved back from the Pacific Northwest, and my old dentist in Minneapolis retired, and Park Dental saved the day. For over 50 years, Park Dental has been caring for and cleaning teeth in Minnesota and western Wisconsin. They'll treat patients of all ages, a comprehensive family dentist. So if you're looking for a new dentist or a better dentist, schedule your checkup at parkdental.com. There's convenient locations throughout the Twin Cities, likely just minutes away from anywhere you work or anywhere you live. Parkdental.com. Also, the Minneapolis Boat Show is coming up here Thursday, January 23rd through Sunday, January 26th. at the Minneapolis Convention Center. The best in boating is headed to the Minneapolis Convention Center. The Discover Boating Minneapolis Boat Show in partnership with Progressive Insurance. It's not just any boat show. It's the Midwest's largest boat sale. More boats, more brands, unbelievable, unbeatable deals. Check out what's new for 2025, planning for the lake and summer months ahead. Children 12 and younger are free when accompanied by a paying adult. General admission tickets for 13 and older are $13 online, $15 on site. Go to MinneapolisBoatShow.com. MinneapolisBoatShow.com. All right, boys, it's time.
I want a mock.
It's time. We've got. Are you? So you haven't done your 3.0, right, Thor?
Not 3.0 yet.
Okay. So we now know where the Vikings are drafting. They're drafting 24th. So we're going to get more accurate mock information. Curious to hear Thor react to some of these. We can start doing simulations now too. Be great.
Yep.
Some mock sims. So this one's from Dane Brugler, The Athletic. And he's got the Titans taking Cam Ward, number 1 overall, quarterback Miami. He has, this is interesting. He has the Browns taking Abdul Carter, edge rusher from Penn State, number 2. The Giants taking Travis Hunter from Colorado, 3. He has Shedeur Sanders going to the Raiders at 6. He says there's mixed opinions about Sanders around the league. It'll be interesting to see how or if that changes throughout the draft process. But with Mark Davis and Tom Brady heavily influencing this pick, I'm not sure the Raiders could pass on Shedeur Sanders. Could he fall to 6?
I doubt it. I do not believe so. No. And him or Ward. I don't see a scenario where either of them gets to 6. The thing I'll say is, you do these mock drafts and sometimes you like the fit of the prospect with the team, but the slot doesn't exactly make sense. And early on in the process, before you're doing trades, you might prioritize the prospect to the team fit that you like. And that might be what Dane's doing here. Dane might be, maybe not that he heard something from Las Vegas, but maybe that he likes that fit with Las Vegas. Maybe he had heard the Deion Sanders thing while he was writing that. Who knows? But I would assume it's more that it's essentially a trade that we're not seeing in there. And boy, would that make that would explain the Abdul Carter at number 2 pick. If it's Abdul Carter at 6 with the slot that you just acquired from the Raiders in your trade down, that would make a lot more sense for Abdul Carter.
And as we start the mock draft process, may I say again, if you're not going to make mock trades in your mock draft, get off the boat. Get out of the business. I need mock trades then. If you're going to go to all this work to project, then make the Raiders trade.
Agreed.
With the
Put
Browns.
the work in. Put the work in.
Yeah, exactly right. Don't be like, well, I don't think he'll last till 6, but the Raiders like him. And so the Raiders, well, if that's what you think, Dane, then make the trade.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. And
we're going after him, Thor.
Well, Dane, I love you.
Just attacking.
I don't know, Dane, but do better, Dane.
He's going to come up to me in Mobile on Tuesday and be like, well, what was it? No, just
who was that guy in the quarter zip?
Nice
I'll be like, his name is Judd Zulgad. Here's his phone number. Here's his, no, just kidding. I more or less feel the same, but I also understand, having done this where it's like, I want to get this guy here, but it's not, luckily we got the trade chart. I have a trade chart that I made, and I got a little gizmo in my draft database where I can put the draft terms on both sides and see if it's a fair trade or not. So I was stoked to see the Vikings get their final, not stoked that the Vikings lost, but that their pick is finalized along with the teams above them. You start to get a better idea of the possibilities, what could happen. And then also, of course, you guys know I am a sick person. The amount of time I have spent looking at this sheet already, doing the Zach Galifianakis gif of 24. If you want to move up 8 spots from there, what would that cost? If you were going to move down 10 spots from 24, what could you realistically be expected to receive back for that? We have been doing a lot of different equations here, so it's an exciting time.
You can, all right, Positive Phil here is going to make an appearance. Again, I would have preferred a run through the playoffs, but hey, they're picking 24th instead of 28th, right? It's great. You could trade back and still have a first-round pick and a 5-year rookie scale contract. So Ashton Jeanty falls to 20 to the Broncos.
Yep.
And Dane says, should Jeanty fall this far? Of course not. But if Dallas passes at 12, there's not many obvious landing spots. So before we get to the Vikings pick, if Jeanty falls past the Cowboys and you're sitting at 24, where is the range that he would fall to where you would consider trading up for the best running back in the draft? Or would you not? Would you stand pat or trade back?
You got to do the hold. You know, what wasn't it, Mel Gibson and Braveheart, or what was it? Hold till you see the whites of their eyes. You would have to. You would have to hold until the exact pick you said, Phil. It's 20 because the reason why is moving from 24 to 20. My trade chart, you got a discrepancy on that of 32 points. 32 points is analogous to the fourth pick in the fourth round. You have to pay a slight tax. You pick 4 spots above that with your comp pick, and at the end of the third round, or 5, 6, 7 picks. The even trade there would be 24 in your third round comp pick for 20. And if there's not a guy on the board for that Denver wants that, or if they're like there's 2 guys. But we don't think we know that you're going to take we're not going to take the running back, and we'd be cool with either of these 2 guys. We'll take that extra pick. That's I think where something like that could happen. And of course, you don't need to pocket that round 3 anymore. At that to delineate it to a running back, right? But if you're going to do that, of course, we'll have to see what happens in free agency. But do you have your right guard? Do you have your interior defensive lineman? Do you have your cornerback? And do you have multiple at either of those positions? Because if you did a trade like that, if you haven't gotten the tag and trade for Sam or you have not acquired extra picks in advance of that, after that trade, you would be sitting with only 2 fifth-round picks after that for the rest of the draft.
Hey, Thor, do you think there's a chance, too, that they do address that and try and I don't know what type of trade, but try and get additional picks before the draft starts? And I don't know what the means would be, if it would be trying to get like a 5th-round pick for a current player, if it would be actually trading back from your 1st-round pick. But because it's 3 picks right now or 4 picks? It's 4 picks, right?
3.
Well,
before the comps. It's 3. Okay. It's a 1st and 2 fifths.
Okay.
Technically 3, but they will be getting their third round comp.
So do you think that they go into draft weekend with 4 picks, or does your gut tell you that they'll probably find a way to at least swing a deal for a couple more, not high picks necessarily, but picks?
I would love it to be more, because it probably means that there was a Sam tag and trade. The other scenario, though, to it, I'm trying to think if there's another one outside of this, but the other one that could present itself is what presented itself to the Texans last year when Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah called, or maybe they called us. Yeah. There was a little bit of confusion in the local media about who was picking up the telephone there, but no matter. You're talking about the very similar pick. The Texans were trading down from 23. Why did they want the 2nd-round pick? And then the 2nd-round pick in the future, because they wanted to trade for Stephon Diggs. The Vikings, they would have different motivation for doing so. I'm talking early. That trade between the Vikings and the Texans, as you guys recall, was consummated March 15th of last year, a month and a half before the draft. You had 2 teams that had matching motivations there, where the Vikings, they wanted the more ammunition so they could guarantee their rookie quarterback. And the Texans they needed to manufacture another 2nd-round pick so they could send it to Buffalo for a former boy. There is a shot for sure that you get calls like that from teams that are in a similar situation to where the Vikings were, for instance, last year, and they want to move into the 1st round. They don't want to deal with the bidding war on draft day. Maybe they call you up with the Kelly Blue Book price of what the trade would be up from their 2nd-round pick, and they say, we'll give you a little bit of overage to do it in advance. Something you would have to think about. And I also think, we just talked about a trade up for Genty. That would be surprising. It'd be surprising if he was down there. That would be a sort of contingency thing. I think the much better odds are that the Vikings would end up trading down, be it before the draft or be it during the draft. Assuming that you don't have if you're just sitting at the 4, it's the easiest way to get yourself back to 6 or 7 picks by trading down from that 1.
Well, I will admit, I'm reading these picks as we go. I did not, because I like to kind of find out on the fly. So this is the first time I've seen who Dane has going to the Vikings at 24. I just scrolled to it right now.
Yep.
And Thor, I think, is going to be a very happy man here.
I am.
Because Dane Brugler has to the Minnesota Vikings with the 24th overall pick, Iowa running back Caleb Johnson.
KJ2, as we call him in Iowa City. And a couple days ago, this was before my JJ McCarthy tweeting rampage. I tweeted out like a 4-minute highlight video of Adrian Peterson in his prime with his Vikings, and I said AI rendering of Caleb Johnson on the Vikings. You have very similar frames there, and Caleb Johnson. It's funny, like last year. Talking to all these arguing with all these doofuses at this time of the year who had never watched JJ McCarthy, but they really wanted to have an opinion with me on his game. I'm seeing the same thing with Caleb Johnson. People see his size, and then
what
it's
is
like,
he, 6? What is he? Is he 6 feet?
He's 6'1", 225, somewhere in there.
Okay.
He is a big boy, and he's a big hammerback too, with really, really good feet. But the point I was going to make is way faster than people think. And this is where, some of his game, I'm not going as far as to compare him to Adrian Peterson, but there are some similarities between the games and the high octane speed. Certainly Peterson was faster than him, but Johnson is way faster than most dudes his size. I think he's going to run a mid 4.4 to high 4.4. And assuming that he does get around there, that is where the discussion would begin of potentially could he get into the end of the first round. I think what Dane Brugler is telling you by making that pick is he assumes it's going to happen, that he is going to test like an athletic freak. Boy. So yeah. And with his game, like Caleb Johnson, it really took a jump up this year when he it was like into the first game. And then all of a sudden they were like, yeah, we're just going to give all the touches to Caleb Johnson, but he's a big kid with really, really, really good feet. So he approaching the line, and then you get the very quick, sudden direction change with him, the 1 foot in the dirt and just violently the other way. He's going to run through your arm tackles, and boy, does he start running hard. When he puts the shoulders down, he becomes that berserker guy. I love how hard he runs.
The 90s wrestler guy?
Wait, what's
do you guys remember
wrestler?
The berserker? They literally had a guy. You were maybe just talking about berserkers in general, but yeah, carry on. 90s wrestling nerds.
You talk about a guy that would fix the short yardage and the goal line thing. That would be Caleb Johnson. That thing would be fixed for you.
Maybe you could trade back a few slots, still grab him late in the first, pick up a little extra capital.
So yeah,
decent hands, Thor. As far as catching the ball, how is he?
So there's people that they nitpick his speed, which is patently ridiculous, and they're going to be embarrassed about that at the combine. The hands thing though, and the receiving utility is, I hate to say it as an Iowa grad, it's more or less fair. The one thing though that I will say is a benefit of the doubt with him, as you guys know, the Iowa passing offense is cheeks. So there was not a lot of opportunities for be it Caleb or be it anyone else who was out there trying to catch passes.
Yeah.
Wow. So there it is. All right. There's more where this came from. Yeah, there he is. The berserker.
Oh, he was a Vikings fan.
He was. Dude, seriously, look at him. Be great. We can recreate this photo with Caleb Johnson and Judd standing next to him, and Thor, and maybe JJ McCarthy. Thor, awesome stuff as always on this Thorsday. The JJ McCarthy era is close, and if you want to follow Thor's work, he'll be joining us every Thorsday here on Purple Daily. But his A job is Matthew Berry's FantasyLife.com, where it's fantasy, it's market and betting. And Thor's bread and butter, which is the draft, and then Thor KU on Twitter /X. Awesome stuff, boys.
Hey, thanks a lot. And at Fantasy Life right now, going back to the props and betting on that, I have my national title preview out there, and I'm counting. I have something like 11 player prop bets in this thing. So the things that you can toss into your parlay tickets.
Love it. Wake up the echoes. Let's go. Come on now.
Let's go.
Let's go Irish.
Let's go Irish. Let's do it. Yeah.
All
hey,
right,
Phil, next week, are we starting the mock drafts at the end?
Yeah. You want to do simulations? You want to do mock sims?
I've been itching, Phil. I've been waiting now for 9
months.
Dude,
if you want to start the sims next week, we'll start the sims next week.
We got to get in the lab, Phil.
Oh, he's rolling.
No reason not to.
Ready.
No reason not to.
All right, Judd's on the ground. Press conference day at Twin Cities Orthopedic Performance Center, so we'll report back on that tomorrow. Purple Daily, we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. On to 2025.